What we want to look at here for a few minutes is how to create RAIDs. And of course, RAID, first of all, has to be a dynamic disk. These are all basic disks, and I have 4 of them here. I have two SCSIs and 2 IDE drives installed in this thing, and some unallocated space on drive C, which we will be able to use after we convert it. The first thing we need to look at is converting the disks, and that's just simply a matter of I'm going to look at some of the capabilities. So let's just convert one of these to start with. Convert to dynamic disk, whichever ones we want to convert. So we can convert all of the additional disks straight up. So we'll convert disk 1, 2, 3, and 4, and wait for a few seconds. Okay, so now I paused while I did the conversion. Now these are dynamic disks. In order to convert the and we did not require a reboot for the disks that are attached disks that don't have the operating system on it. They're all unallocated space. We have not created the partitions yet. I want to go ahead and convert the C drive, so we're going to convert disk 0. Details, convert, and it says that it is a system boot partition drive. Will convert, yes, so we want to convert this drive. The disk, you will not be able to start other installed operating systems, which means that only Windows 2003, Windows XP, Windows 2000 actually recognize dynamic disks. Now also, if you convert this, you may have a problem finding a third-party disk management software to recover dynamic disks from. Basic disks are pretty easy to recover with a piece of software called Get Back. You just buy the operating system that you need, and you can recover. If the disk will spin and it can read the physical drive, you can recover the data. So it says that, do you want to continue this operation? We'll say yes. Complete it. We've got to restart, and I'm going to pause while we are restarting. Just a quick one here. After we reboot, we get this window that pops up. Says Windows has finished installing new devices. The software that supports your device requires you to restart the computer. So when you convert the Windows partition on a drive to dynamic, you'll have to restart it twice. So we'll restart the computer again and again. I'm going to pause while that goes. Okay, the system's rebooted and I've got my computer open. You notice that the disks still don't show up. We still have the C drive, which has its original 5 gig partition and a 3 gig of free space remaining. Let's just go ahead and minimize that. And then when we look in here, that's because we have unallocated space. We have not created any volumes or partitions yet. Actually, we're in volumes now that we're in dynamic disks. Notice that this one has changed to a partition. In dynamic disks, one of the things that we should be able to do is extend, and if we click on this one, extend volume, and it says no, the selected volume or boot disk was created on a basic disk in an earlier version of Windows and cannot be extended, which kind of supports that volumes, partitions created on a basic disk remain basic partitions. One of the other little quick things before we go on I'd like to show you is that we can add a mirror to the C drive relatively quickly, and let's pick disk 1 and we'll add the mirror, and it's going to then create the mirror and sync it. We're going to resync, so we have created a 4.88 gigabyte NTFS partition resyncing the system. We'll let that go ahead and fill itself out while we go do some other stuff. Let's go create some new volume. Let's just look at how we're going to create RAIDs. We have the option, now that we're dynamic disk, of simple, span, striped, mirrored, or RAID, and we've just created the mirror. It's in the process of syncing itself up right now. Spanned, as you recall, connects a bunch of smaller disks together into one volume. Striped has no data redundancy, but it does have multiple reads and multiple writes. Let's go ahead and create a striped volume. And when we get the striped volume, we have the option of disk 0, 1, 2, or 4 on these. Disk 0 being the base disk. Disk 3 is the one that we have selected, so it's already picked. We don't have any option here, but we don't have the next because we have not selected another disk to go along with it. So let's pick disk 2. We can add it. And how much disk space? Select the amount of space in megabytes. And this is the amount of space in megabytes of each disk. Let's make something really small. Let's make it like 500 megabytes. So we take 500 megabytes from each disk, giving us a total size of 1,000 megabytes. Since we don't have a parity stripe and we don't lose any of the functionality of the disk. Next, it's going to assign it a drive letter of E. Keep going, and we'll call this one the stripe, just so that we have different names on it. I'm going to use a quick format. The quick format creates the directory structure. A full format checks for bad spots on the disk drive, so you really don't need to use the full format if you know the disk is good and in a virtual environment. So we'll go ahead and configure this one, and now we're formatting. We have an E drive up here, and we'll go up, and this thing's still resyncing, so it's going to take a few minutes while we create these other things. And this one's formatting. So while we're doing that, let's go on down and let's see if we can create that one's healthy now. A new, and we're going to let's create a RAID 5. In the RAID 5, remember, we have to have at least 3 disks. So let's take some from disk 0, which is the original disk, some from disk 4, and disk 2 was where we started originally. Again, let's take 500 megabytes from each disk, but you notice when we take the 500 megabytes from each disk, we only get 1,000 megabytes in the stripe itself, because we lose 1 disk space worth of storage regardless of how many disks we have, and hopefully you'll see that as you create these things. So 500 megabytes, 500 megabytes from each disk, 1,000 megabytes of storage itself. And again, we're going to assign it a drive letter. We'll assign it F, and let's do the quick format again, NTFS file system. So let's go down here and call this one RAID 5, create it, and we'll finish with it. And we're now formatting our RAID 5 partition. I'm going to pause this for a second while these other things finish up, while the disk itself finishes. Okay, all of that's done, and we get a nice little Christmas tree over here. You notice that the stripe, the 500 meg, the RAID 5, we have portions of it here, and then portions of it down here on disk 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and if we look at these things, we have 1,000 megabytes on the RAID 5, 1,000 megabytes on the stripe. Remember, we used 1.5 gig, 1,500 megabytes on the RAID 5, and we used 1,000 megabytes, 500 meg portions on the stripe drive itself. The disk 1, the stripe is finished here, and notice it's C. Both of them is C because they are seen as a single partition. One is a copy of the other. We can go on to this one and explore it, and we have all of the things that were on the C drive. The options here, we go into here, we can remove the mirror, break the mirror volume, and change the drive letters or paths. If we had this thing to fail, we would need to break the volume, break the mirror, put another drive in, and resync the mirror just like we did earlier. Hopefully when you talk about these mirrors, it makes sense, since they're different physical locations, that the RISC directory structure with the disk, R disk, those things that we talked about in XP makes sense, because if the C drive failed, we obviously wouldn't, well, since it's a RAID 5, we would still have these, because the parity stripe would allow the other 2 drives to recreate that information. We could make that, we could put a disk back into the RAID for it. But if this failed and we needed our boot drive, we would need to go in to the boot INI file and change the physical path to the boot disk. We could change it from disk 0 to disk 1 and still continue to boot the server without actually having to go in and physically move things around. The other way, obviously, is to go in and physically move disk 1 into disk 0. The issue becomes there that disk 1 is now a SCSI drive, which would be kind of difficult moving it at the position of disk 0. So we can do those things. We can easily create all different types of RAIDs as long as we have dynamic disk. And as you recall, we had to do that conversion. One of the options here is also new volume, reactivate disk, convert disk. These things are created. We can go back to basic disk. Basically what you do is restart everything, back everything up, make it a basic disk, and then restore it from backup. That is the how we can create these things. The last thing is, let's go to my computer, and you can see that we have the names, the disks that I created, or the volumes that I created, the stripe and the RAID 5, and that's what we named them. They show up with 999 meg for each, with 992 meg remaining of free space on the disks themselves. Okay, that basically takes care of that. Doesn't basically take care of. That's how you create RAID in Windows Server. You have a very basic form of Windows RAID in XP, but Server is the place where you can really create RAIDs. However, you have to have dynamic disk in order to do that. It only works, the clever stuff